Hello everyone. This video is just going to be about Independence Mode, which is a new mode coming in the new DLC for Age of Empires 3, the Baltic Powers. And I'm just going to do a little patch note review to help anyone who's curious about what to expect. I'm going to make some high-level, safe assumptions based on what we see here, and I'm just going to give minimal speculation. To those of you who don't know what Independence Mode is, you just don't have a home city. It's a low-tempo version of the game. They revealed very little about it over here in the initial announcement. They said, yes, they have two rule-changing game modes, Regicide, which is okay, and Independence, which just, adjusted civilization bonuses, but they went into details on the open beta patch. Unfortunately, it's only officially saved on the wiki, which is unofficial, so not officially saved, so to speak, but the forums, they took down the beta forums. Anyway, they did reveal that they have some preloaded card effects, among other things, to help each civilization be more distinct from each other. And it also appears to be a very fort-focused game. So they really want to encourage people building forts and training unique units from forts, much like Age of Empires 2. And factories are also significantly nerfed. The sources of info I'm using are, this open beta patch notes. There was also some data mining that happened. So the AoE3Explorer.com website has a wiki with a patch diff, and you can go here and you can go and click on open beta patches, and you can look at text, and you can type in independence, and you can see that there is a new category of independence mode things, and it talks about stuff. So some people put this together. Shout out to Alternative Time 5285. He actually gave a bunch of details and put together Independence Mode in the beta based on what was data mined. So it was not playable in the beta, but he made it playable, which is really cool. So shout out to him. I'm going to use some of that info, but I'm not really going to go too deep into that kind of stuff, because it's like there are things that they're telling us, and then there are things that they're doing. Anyway. So apologies for any rambling in advance. But yeah, so high level, just want to get this out of the way. Rushes are going to be less intense, right? This is a very, very natural, flow of removing shipments. Instead of being able to pile on shipment after shipment of military units, that's not going to happen. You're going to need to manually train every batch of unit that you're, throwing at your opponent. Fast fortresses are going to be slower. You're not going to have your 700 coin shipments. You're not going to have your two Falconet shipment when you arrive into the Fortress Age. And turtling is going to be more difficult as well. You're not going to have your advanced trading posts or your fort wagons to just stonewall people. However, let's just get into the civilization expectations. So they say all villagers gather resources faster. That's data mined to be 10%, which is fairly negligible in my opinion. Unlimited number of workers can construct buildings. That's cool. Again, not hugely important unless they change the build speed, in my opinion. Traditional XP sources now yield resources. Trade routes provide a mix of resources. That's going to be nice, but we'll get into the specifics later. African units trained in war camp generate influence. If this is based on the card, then this is going to be a very minor trickle, like 0.00 or 0.03, so not huge. And constructing and slowly gathering from fields is a nice benefit when they're fully fattened. But beforehand, again, if this is based on the card, then they stop fattening when they start to gather from fields. All wonders can be reconstructed during the final age. Great for Imperial games, but that's going to take a while to get to. Europeans can build up to 2 forts in Age 3 and 2 factories in Age 4. So 2 forts in Age 3, that's great. And 2 factories in Age 4, if the data mines are true, then that could be very expensive. But again, not going to try to speculate too much. All advanced church technologies are available. This is scary because church cards in the game are very, you can get a lot of tempo out of those things. So I'm very concerned that unit shipments from these are going to dominate this game mode. Just want to flag that for y'all. Federal American civs, the Mexicans and the Americans, their generals can build town centers and factories in Age 4, and Quaker guns at artillery foundries. I just want everybody to be aware that this usually requires a card. that's going to be pretty scary when they can just have decoys and just mixed in with their normal units. They're like 100 wood, and you can all of a sudden be presenting an extra heavy cannon for your opponent to deal with. All advanced cathedral meeting houses, same as the church tech thing. Native American Native Scouts receive an automatic upgrade. If this is the same as advanced scouts, then that'll be nice. Nice little bit of boost. And all ceremonies are available. That's not actually that much. We can get into that later. For the Aztecs are going to be shifted quite a bit because they rely so much on XP. Their war chief generates XP with his bonus XP aura, and without that, that's going to need replacing. The data mine says that is going to be a damage resistance aura, so it's effectively going to be similar to the Haudenosaunee 10% hit point aura, but instead it's going to be 10% damage block, which could be really brutal. Between Ruthlessness and Silent Strike, Silent Strike makes Coyote runners have stealth. Ruthlessness gives them a bonus 50% damage against villagers. They basically get mini Oprichniks in Age 2, and that's going to be super scary. This also lowers the total damage, that it takes for Otantan slingers to one-shot villagers considerably, and it makes the pikemen a little bit better at raiding. Calendar ceremony is nice because gift ceremony, usually they just go straight to generating XP. So again, core Aztec gameplay being rejiggered. I don't care about fortification building with plus 50%. I don't know if you do. And the American Citadel, that's the Mayan-looking fortress that they can build, and they can train their school knights from there. The British, they have agents. They have Florence Nightingale, Admiralty. So agents is the spy thing. Spies are a little bit better. Florence Nightingale manor houses can regenerate HP. They've got some good naval boosts. Really good naval boosts. That's gonna be nice, and I'm gonna skim over a lot of these things. Fulling mills is whatever. Factories are 40% cheaper. Factories might be very, very expensive, and that would actually be huge in the industrial age. Battleship Available in Fortress Age, probably not a big deal. Longbowmen, great at siege. And Hanover drummers and Stuart bagpipers, I did not get to test this in the beta, but if they stack, then that's going to be massive scaling buffs to people. Interesting. And the church card, though, that's going to be, if they can just be shipping Highlanders and Rangers from their church card, that's going to be huge. So watch out for the British. And the Fulling Mills does make it so that they can, take advantage of livestock on a map a little bit more. It makes them gather livestock at 8 per second rather than 2 per second. Nice little buff there. The Chinese are really looking to be very strong here. Advanced Wonders makes it so they build their wonders faster, they age up faster, and they're tougher. Atonement just makes them an outlaw civ, so they get -2 pop on all outlaws, which is great, and I'm super excited about that. Acupuncture is not super relevant. Village defenses, though, these guys are going to be great on the defense. So if you think about being rushed, right? You got to throw all your villagers in the TC or your villages. You're not going to have a home city shipment coming to save you, right? If you can't pump out troops, then you're dead in the water. Village defenses gives you the Minutemen call in every village you build, and that's going to be huge. Just having access to more troops on the spot, like if your opponent sieges down your war academy, that's going to be great. Food silos is whatever late game stuff, and ranching and stockyards, they have some livestocky things. And Great Wall is ridiculous. It quintuples their wall health, makes it so that they take longer to build. But these are very Chinese are going to be very turtly in this version of the game. Tigermen and that's what acupuncture does. It just increases the train speed of everything, so that's gonna be good. Rattan shields are okay. They already have heavy cavalry and iron troopers. That's gonna be nice for when you just want to train some skirmisher type units. Very tough, and they're available in their different wonders instead of a fort. The Danes have some fun things, fairly Minutemen oriented. Scanian resistance actually lets them convert all of their villagers temporarily into Minutemen, and then they turn back after a little bit. So safe houses is also related to that. So that's gonna be great. Everything regenerates hit points. So turtly leaning and good on the sea. And they also just have a free bank at the start of the game, so they're a free half of a bank. Order elephants and order hospitalers are to be TBD about their balance, whether they're worth building a fort to train. The Dutch, they get some miscellaneous buffs. These are nice. Advanced Dock, Advanced ATP. Piece of Munster is just allows their envoys to build things. The big thing, in my opinion, is this hand infantry move 15% faster. We already saw that with the halberdiers, and that can get pretty crazy when you combine that with advanced arsenal. And according to the data mine, every European civ gets advanced arsenal for free, so you can build an arsenal in H2 and just research military drummers, which is perhaps the most powerful tech from there. It makes your hand infantry move 10% faster. But halberdiers are great with that buff. Pikemen, on the other hand, they just go, you've got your 5 move speed pikemen. Now your pikemen out of the gate are 5.75 speed. They're almost as fast as rotoleros, which are 6 speed. And if you stack that with advanced arsenal, then your pikes are moving 6.25 speed. So they're going to go torch down a lot. This is fine. Villagers, coin gathering plus 15%. Unknown if that's just reflecting the base merchant thing or if it's actually going to stack. That'd be cool. And they get Musk Huss in forts, which is pretty neat. Ethiopians, bush burning, nice little wood chopping boost there. Tabit, great card, lets you just build infinite mines, basically, with the monasteries. And then Loyal Warriors, just a nice little boost for mercenaries and native warriors. Makes them cheaper. Advanced Agriculture is whatever. Dejazmak just sends you an extra hero in Fortress Age. So unfortunately, the Ethiopians are looking to be very... they're not getting a lot out of this. And, I called attention to them having the most ridiculously disproportionate, map range, right? You've got all sorts of different maps, and they all have different benefits. There's water maps, there's whatever, but Ethiopia has the widest spread, the most diverse win rate based on map, and it all comes down to the kind of livestock that is on the map. So this is going to do absolutely nothing for that, and I fear the Ethiopians are going to be very, very poor in this game mode. The French, they get free food trickle, they get some nice vision, Portuguese style, and they get some miscellaneous buffs for their troops. Some promotions, some armor, battleships having promotions, whatever. Horse Carabineers are actually really good, very good in melee. Don't know if that's going to be worth building a fort to get. The Germans, the Germans, they get some buffs. They get a lot of buffs, really. I mean, they get a mining boost, the same mining boost the Dutch get. Their houses are just doubly better. They get the mercenary camps, which is whatever. Ranching and prince electors are okay as well. Settler wagons being built in town centers, that's supposed to compensate, I think, for their lack of being able to ship them. Settler wagons should probably be trained, even though they cost 100 wood. Because it's like batch training 2 villagers. It only takes 25 seconds to train a single settler wagon. Mercenaries plus 20% hit points. That's nice. And then live fusiliers. These are a new musketeer type unit from the DLC, and they're going to be available in the fort along with the dragoon type unit with a heavy melee attack. Unfortunately, Germans, similar to the Spanish, they're going to need more than normal to compensate for their loss of they benefited from XP more than normal civilizations. I calculated their average. The trade-off, it took more XP for them to get a shipment, but you get the Ulans. And so the Germans did benefit more from XP than normal civilizations. So even though they have all these buffs, their church card is not good. I don't think they're going to be super good in this version. Also forgot to mention about, speaking of church cards, the French do get a church, their church card's getting nerfed. So, time will tell. Haudenosaunee are really cool. They get strong buff for their infantry stats. Warhouses, nice little, it's a tickle, really. The attack that your longhouses get, it's like 10 attack, which compared to an outpost, it's 1/3 of an outpost. So you need 3 houses to have the same damage output as an outpost. And it's at short, it's like 12 range. So this is pretty irrelevant in my opinion. Siege construction is nice. It's just a nice little boost for your siege workshop units. And builder Trevoy per age up. Nice. Native warriors 25% cheaper. That's actually huge. I mean, yeah, that's gonna be really, really good. Makes them a very, very good contender for training any solid native units. The main thing here is the native stronghold. This is perhaps the coolest thing coming from Independence mode. There's all sorts of interesting things that are going on here already. With all these cards being pre-sent, and you're getting to start the game with sometimes cards that you never see. But the native stronghold is a new building that is coming to this game, and it is unique to the Haudenosaunee and the Lakota. So there is a picture on Imager, and it looks like this. And that's from the data mined version of the game. Unknown if that's going to be the release version, but if it is, that would be super cool. And I would totally just play just to be able to build that new building and train some Lenape riflemen who are a native warrior, and they have a stun attack and cannons available in the native stronghold, the vaguely termed cannons. And the data mine shows those as being heavy cannons, which would make Haudenosaunee capable of spamming heavy cannons and focusing their eco on training heavy cannons, which would be very scary. The Hausa, they only get 2 cards pre-sent, but Messina Madrasas is nuts. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that is a 30% boost to mining and chopping within the radius of a university. And university radiuses are very large. Radii, sorry. So 30% boost to mining and chopping wood, blows so many other civs out of the water. It's crazy. It just you plop a university down. Universities are relatively cheap, and they pay for themselves anyway. This is, watch out for the Hausa. Sahelian kingdoms, that's whatever. That's just like a little boost for mercs and native warriors and stuff. And buildings costing 100 wood or more. Spawn a zebu cattle is very nice. That's generally what they, supposed to replicate the general cadence of what it used to be, where they would get a shipment and receive a zebu cattle. The Inca, very interesting stuff going on here. Their llamas are getting an inherent boost. They get the allies for free, which, in my opinion, that's mostly just for the techs, like the 20% hand infantry boost. Monumental architecture, nice little boost for like town center hit points and attack, and among some other things. Chasqui buffs, unknown as of now if they get their Chasqui card sent in lieu of the native scout card, because that's actually really good. The Chasqui are quite insane. They can't be snared, and when they get that buff, then they become this artillery killer. It's crazy. Native warrior limit, that's very nice because their aura, Inca aura, is still going to be solid boost to native warrior stats. And Mapuche Bolus Riders are an okay unit, but the Peruvian Guards are very nice. They've seen better days. The early days of the Peru Revolt had these guys like lobbing grenades from 20 range and melting everything. Nowadays, I believe it's like 14 range or 16 range or something like that for their grenade attack. But nonetheless, it is nice to have a buffed revolutionary, and they're fairly cheap. And it's a heavy ranged infantry that it fills a strategic role for the Inca. So they can combine those guys with maybe some Chasquis, but definitely their shock infantry, their mainline shock infantry, which I'm forgetting the name of for some reason. And they already have a fort equivalent, which is the stronghold. Indians. The Indians are also, they have XP interactions aplenty. They have the sacred fields and the sacred cows, and those are going to be changed to something else. They don't mention it here, but in the data mine, it is reflected as export. They're going to be switched to generating export, which could be very interesting. Grazing is nice. It affects all of their mounted units, and it's just a nice little trickle. Nothing major. Free distributivism, nice little wood trickle at the start. Rocketeers is going to be interesting because arsonists are getting a buff, and Rocketeers just adds a rocket attack to arsonists, and that's going to be interesting, and they're available in the Agra Fort, so there's a lot going on there. That would be age 3 minimum, I think. So you build your Agra Fort, age 2 or 3, but it's going to... Anyway, it should be a good Falconet equivalent. And Dukkha Suffering just slows enemies within the radius of your monks. So you're going to want to fight with your monks a bit more. And, villagers are 85 wood instead of 100 wood. Brahmins can train tigers. They didn't specify which kind of tigers. The Brahmins can currently in multiplayer train 2 types of tigers, one via card and one via monastery tech. So we'll see. War Dao available in docks. War Daos are really expensive, but they are super cool. So that'll be fun. Italians get the Venetian Arsenal with no wagon, and the Venetian Arsenal just it buffs things around the arsenal, if I recall correctly. Merchant Republics gives you a buff to trade route income. Advanced Politicians is great because it boosts all your politicians in the future. And the Papal Arsenal arrives in the Fortress Age, which enables all your special attacks for your Papal units. This is really fun. Advanced Politicians is going to be nice because, most people haven't been being incentivized to age up, really, right? So it's as far as we've seen. So time will tell if other age ups will be buffed. But, the idea that somebody's good at aging up that helps. And the Papal Arsenal, Papal units are so fun. The Schiavone, the Papal Guard, they're all so fun to use. But in the main game, you get your XP deficit, and you're fighting when you use the Papal units, and they occupy that shipment slot. But in this case, you just get Papal units that that's not conflicting with shipments. So you can just train Papal units and have that be your thing. So I'm looking forward to that. More siege range stuff for skirms, because why not? Battleships deflect. That's cool. Battleships are super expensive. It's 1,000 wood, 1,000 coins. That's why I haven't been super excited about those. And red shirts are a revolutionary variant, and carabinieri are a slightly buffed carbine cavalry variant. So not super excited about their unique fort units, but they're there. Japanese, they get their free trickle card. They get a nice fishing boost, cherry blossom festival, so they gather from berry bushes faster, and they actually get one of their Japanese isolation techs free, which just lets them batch train in 10 rather than 5. So that's pretty strong. And they get a daimyo per age and a shogun in the Imperial Age, which is also pretty strong. And Yojimbo have seen better days, available in the Golden Pavilion. They're a mercenary cavalry archer. They used to be career series basically in melee. You just switch them to melee, do 2 AoE, and melt everybody, but now it's 1 AoE and significantly worse. So, they did lack a true light cavalry unit because of their Yabusame doubling as their Culverin equivalent. And so with this, it's interesting. Could be nice along with their Yumi. The Lakota have kinship ties. This is a 100 wood town center now, where you just spend 100 wood, build a native embassy, and you get a town center. This is instantly overpowered unless they do something about this. I don't imagine that's going to be like maybe it'll show up in Age 4. Either way, that's still incredibly busted. Marauders, just a little buff to your Tashunke Prowler build limit. North America trade is very nice. It's basically an extra 15% buff. It makes it so that you get some coin when you do anything, but especially when hunting. And camp movements is really nice. I've used camp movements to take down. So you can make almost any building move, but you just pack it down, and it takes 30 seconds. So this is bad to use in the early game for your town center or military production buildings, because you're spending 30 seconds turning your building into a travois, and then setting it back up takes a little bit of time as well. But nonetheless, it's great. I've used this when being rushed, and it's I'm just going to go run to an island or, camp in a corner somewhere. So it's actually really solid, especially with naval stuff. So because of the native stronghold being a Fortress Age thing, I'm probably going to be, trying to, use camp movements to stay alive and just, get to Age 3 and build a big old stronghold just to say I did. Native warriors train really fast. That's cool. Tokala soldiers and Cheyenne riders available in the native stronghold. Tokala soldiers are great, and Cheyenne riders are not. Cheyenne riders are horrible units, and they need a buff, so I'm not super excited about that. But you can also train bison herds in the Industrial Age, which is really cool. so you're never going to need to build a farm. The Maltese get priests that can gather from berries and plantations and mills. So Monastic Grangees is a new Livonian Revolutionary card, which is in the DLC. And it makes them gather from berries, makes priests gather from berries very fast. So that could be really exciting, especially on maps with lots of berries. And they have a lot of naval stuff going on here. Offshore support, that's good naval tech. It's like +2 range, I think. Greek fire, sorry, not flamethrowers. Greek fire lets them train fire ships. Flamethrowers boosts their, gives that charge attack to the fire throwers. Advanced commanderies is just a nice little boost to normal commandery stuff. And fort construction means they get to build a fort in Age 2. And not only do they get to build a fort in Age 2, they get to have their sentinel unit help their grandmaster build that fort. So these guys are going to be one of the few who can like pretty much guarantee that they're going to get a fort up. It will be difficult as all get out to build a fort in this game mode unless villagers can help pitch in. If villagers can help pitch in, then you can really get something up fast. But if not, it's going to take a while because like a single general or whatever building a fort is going to take it takes like 120 seconds. It's like a 2-minute deal. So that's tough. Units get their little hit point boost per technology. That'll be nice. It'll add up over time. And you get Cazadors and Settler Wagons in the commanderies. So that's going to be huge boom potential in my humble opinion. And you get some cool new units, just some heavy Doppelsoldner types and some heavy cav in the forts. These are cool new units. I don't know their power level right now, and that's all very subject to change. Mexicans get some crazy buffs for the Salteadors. So instead of 3 seconds for their lingering observation of a unit that they damaged, it's 10 seconds, and they just get like bonus HP. It's nice. And then some nice Hacienda buffs. Something interesting about Haciendas is that I don't think you're going to really see Haciendas in this version of the game because, think about it. It costs 600 wood. You don't have shipments, so you don't get your free starting one. And, 600 wood to build a farm, it can have, some fun little buffs like auto-gathering, cattle or spawning, nerfed Quattrero outlaws. But I don't see a reason to get them early. Cinco de Mayo and Port Veracruz are both federal Imperial Age cards. So your forts with Port Veracruz, they get +6 range and they're going to attack enemy buildings. This is ridiculous. If you can castle drop somebody in this game mode, if you can build something fast, this is going to be ridiculous because you're going to be shelling enemy buildings with your fort. And then Cinco de Mayo buffs all troops, all of your military around your fort in a fairly large radius by 25%. And it's not just plus 25% stats, it's scaling. So if you've got some Imperial units, that's effectively plus 50% stats. Ridiculous. I don't know why. And then the Tlaxcala Alliance is insane because you get your little militia call of your little Aztec cosplay, Jaguar Prowl Knights from the TC, and that's nice. And you get conquistadors that you can train from a 100 wood stable. Yeah, that's just really good. Revolutionaries in Age 2 are really weak. I don't know anybody who plays Central America and trains revolutionaries except for the fact that they just they're doing food only gathering stuff. And the Californios are great stables in Age 4. This is actually really nice. And then you get cuirassiers and Kruzov infantry. Kruzov infantry are great. They're a lot like Karolians. They just deal a lot of range damage to heavy cav, but they are really fast. These guys move very fast. I can't remember how fast, but very fast. And so that's really nice. You get this nice little Musk-Huss combo there. The Ottomans, they get it's like a 20% discount. This is getting nerfed. It might be a 15% discount to their heavy infantry, and their cav archers are going to deal double damage to villagers or something. And they get a nice little artillery buff because the little line of sight boost that they get inherently isn't enough. These guys are going to be great for breaking sieges because they get their mortars early. So they get the mortars, not only mortars, but horse artillery in the Fortress Age. Horse artillery are pretty good alternative to falconets. Fragile, but very deadly. So if your opponent doesn't have Colves, they're going to be, really hurting. And they get a bunch of units available in the fort. The Sipahi in the fort, that's going to be irritating. And Barbary Warriors, nice little Rodolero equivalent, and nice little fast skirm unit in the fort. That's going to be cool. Zebex, also just kind of cool. Like, they look cool. That's really the only reason you get them in current version of the game. The Poles. Agrarian reforms in the beta was totally busted. Basically made it so that you could get almost hunting speed on your mills, on your dirt cheap mills, with one card, and you don't even need to send the card down. So that could be very broken. Meanwhile, the other things, they're just kind of like miscellaneous buffs and things, and enabling different things. I'm not super familiar with this. Nice buffs. Nice buffs. They don't get as many factories as the others because their SAM building does factory stuff, and they get 4 units available in the forts. The Ulons and the Skirmishers are Ulons and Skirmishers. The Serdukes and Legionaries are 2 different kinds of heavy infantry musketeer type, as far as I can tell. Serdukes are like a soldado, and Legionaries are closer to a normal musketeer. Portuguese are crazy. So they get a lot of miscellaneous things, but they get schooners. They're the only ones with schooners. So your dock boom, right? You go in there, and you've got the Portuguese who have their, they've got their fishing boats costing way less, and it's going to be a mess. So if you're up against the Portuguese on a water map, you might as well throw in the towel, or somehow just totally shut them down on the water ASAP. They also get a boost to their caravels. And, they get their TC trickle. They get to train stuff out of all their ships. So they're, you build a caravel, that doubles as a barracks. Order of Aviz, so they get their busted Dragoon range, and they get more TC. Build limit, that's very nice. Battleships, whatever. Heavy Elmedo, these guys on the open beta patch, they had 30% more XP. The normal Elmedo and Elmedo are mercenary lancer that deal a ton of damage. So that's going to be super scary. And Independence Dragoons, they're just normal Dragoons with heavy melee damage. So, again, the devs really like their light cav with ridiculous melee damage. Russians, some miscellaneous boosts. They can chop wood faster. They get to train infantry really fast. Assassins is, whatever boost for spies. It's, like a charged attack. It's kind of, niche. Sovnya is great. They get their melee boosts in for their Strelets and Poruchiks and the Cav Archers. The nice thing. Grenade launchers, whatever. I don't think that's super relevant. Counter Dragoons and Counter Jaegers are just goons and skirms with little boosts. I don't know. I don't think that's super relevant either. I don't think the Russians are really coming out of this one on top. The Spanish get their Lancer boost, some Llama stuff, some naval stuff. Reconquista is getting buffed, so it actually makes it so that you get uncapped Conquistador train limit. That's insane. That's going to be like super busted because you just build a native embassy and just spam those guys. Conquistadors are busted. Anyway, Unction, that's nice. So you can spam some priests out and get all that going. And Capitalism, they get a bunch of coin for free over time. And nice little boost. Nice little boosts. And then lastly, some people might still have PTSD from the time when Argentina was insane. But this is post-nerf mounted Granaderos. They are probably not worth it. They get countered by everything. They're like rifle riders, but not good. The Swedes get blueberries. I like that. Their torps just have better berries, and they get 2 big artillery boosts. Case shot gives them that close range shot that Napoleon guns have inherently, and people are learning those are deadly. You cannot charge Napoleon guns. And Kronstadt reforms just reduces population for their artillery. So this is heavy artillery, civ, and they have their torp wagon and receive a torp wagon per age. That's a nice little boost. And the mercenaries costing 20% less is really nice. And the Karelian Jaeger in the fort. Prospector wagons too. Like being able to reload your torps is great, but Karelian Jaegers are insane. You know, I mean, you spend 100 wood on a skirmisher that gathers wood at 1.5x the normal villager rate. So it's like, okay, all right, you just get up to age 3, build a fort, and build it, and your fort is basically like a super TC because it trains these dudes in batches of 5. Imagine training villagers in batches of 5. It's crazy. Also, very scary about the Swedes, and I forgot to mention this about the Poles as well, because both of these civs, they have unit shipments in age 2 via their church cards, and again, if that's not touched, I'm very worried, especially the Swedes. The Poles can get like 9 Janissaries. The Swedes can get, well, it's a ridiculous amount. It's you throw 1,500 food and you get a ton of halberdiers, and they're like age 3 halberdiers. And in this game mode, when you don't, like, normally you have to sacrifice your tempo just to unlock that ability. In this game mode, you just age to 2, build a church. You don't have to spend a card. You don't have to spend your 700 coin or 6 musketeers to unlock that. You just build the church, spend the 1,500 food, and all of a sudden you get your massive halberdiers and you just go destroy your opponent. I don't see how that's gonna fly. Like any game against the Swedes, you're just gonna be doing everything you can to kill those halberdiers, and then after that they have this huge advantage because they just they force you to react so hard or just lose instantly. So I'm concerned. United States, they have a similar deal, but in a different way. So I'll just talk about their card, their church card first. Philadelphia Convention. They get some unit shipments. Those are not great unit shipments. They're like fairly priced. It's like you spend basically equivalent to training your units that you get from it. But the main thing is that you get basically free coin, trickle, right? And it's 2.5 coin per second. And, even with the baseline of settlers gathering a little faster, that's still quite a lot of coin. That's like 4 or 5 villagers on coin, and it's just passive trickle. As soon as you hit age 2, you just build a meeting house and you clock that in. It's a free tech. So that's really nice. I mean, how many other of these civs are getting something crazy like that? Like just 5 free villagers as soon as you hit age 2. I think that's going to be pretty defining, and I think it's going to be pretty oppressive. The other things, advanced market is whatever. It's just the buy-sell rate that applies to both civs, both players, all players in the match. I don't see why that's so special. And then advanced saloon just makes it so that you want to build saloons first instead of houses, because they're just 200 wood houses that do 20 pop, but also have a little coin trickle. So it's like you get a vill, for your houses. Anyway, long rifles is nice because your Minutemen and your state militia get +4 range each. So your Minutemen start out with 16 range instead of 12. That's very nice. And your state militia are a little more, they're a little more relevant for longer. Hulks is just an ironclad buff. That doesn't really matter much because ironclads aren't very good. And then U.S. Marines and Fortress Age, that's pretty cool, especially if they don't have, kill bounty. Then that's like the one weakness, the one reason you didn't want to switch your militia to Marines. And so your militia are just going to get a huge buff in the Fortress Age. So that's a good incentive. And nice little villager buff, miscellaneous thing. The spies have rifles. If this is like the data mined thing, then this is going to be Nowelton's rifles, who are, it's like a nice little boost. Not a huge deal, in my opinion. Not very strong. And forts cost minus 50% wood. That's huge. So, the eco is going to be great, and one factory can be built in the Fortress Age. If factories are expensive as they're looking it's 1,500 wood and 1,500 coin to build a factory in the data mine, which is, one shipment in age 4 is like 1,600 resources. So this is like costing 2 shipments to get a factory. So I don't think people are going to be building factories. It takes like 9 minutes to make that back, to make the resources back from building a factory. So trying not to speculate too much, but data mining is nice. And then Polish Uhlans, just normal Uhlans pretty much. And then Washington's Grenadiers, really strong. Grenadiers, not as good as Old Guard, but still pretty good. All right, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I hope y'all have a great one, and I'll try to cover more of this stuff as we go. Catch y'all later. Bye.